Welcome back to Dan91's Garage. This week we're going to have a quick look through the Pulsar 2860R Gen 2 that's arrived for the turbo build on the Lexus IS200. It's over there on the bench, so I'll chuck you guys on the tripod and we can get stuck in. See you guys in a sec. And there it is. So I ordered a PTX 2860R Gen 2 and the label says PSR 2860 Gen 2, so I'm hoping it's the right thing. It did have another sort of brown cardboard outer carton on it when it arrived, obviously for extra protection, and that had some thick sort of band wrapping on it that was PSR branded, so that's pretty cool. It has been sealed very nicely with some expanding foam in the bags, as they do to completely surround the turbo. That's a good score for packaging there, so we'll get all that nonsense out of the way and get the turbo onto the table so we can actually see. I've already been in there obviously, and you get a little accessories pack with it. So this is some single sort of layer stainless steel gaskets. You also get the oil drain, which we'll come onto in a bit, oil feed with a restrictor in it and the bolts to put those on the gaskets and everything, so that's pretty cool. Then the turbo obviously got some instructions as well, obviously how to fit a turbo to your car and how to oil it properly and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, we'll get this out of the way and get the turbo on the bench, and we'll take it apart. We might as well go through the accessories bag while we're here. So obviously you've got your thin arse gaskets. These are just one layer, which I'm not going to bother with. I've got some much nicer ones to go with it, but at least you get them for mock-up purposes and protecting the flanges if you're going to machine anything. That's pretty cool. Obviously you get a billet aluminium, I think this is -10 AN oil drain. We'll show you how pointless that is in a bit. And also that looks to be a stainless steel restrictor oil inlet, 4AN I believe that end is, and obviously a special taper fitting to fit the turbo. Get a little gasket for it as well on the screws. So this is it in its current out of the box configuration. This is obviously the outlet. It's got the two flanges to bolt onto, and this is the turbocharger in, so obviously the core can spin independently of the turbine housing and compressor housing. But we put that in there, line it up, you can see there's absolutely zero gap between this and the actual inlet to the turbo anyway, so you can't use this in its current configuration. There's no way it'll work. And if you imagine how large a nut is, obviously you can have another sort of aluminium hex nut on there, so add another 5mm either side of that. You'd barely be able to get a spanner on it to tighten it up anyway, so that's not much use for its current configuration. If I turn it round, bolt it on, or maybe bolt the fitting to this first and then bolt this onto the turbo, when I've spun it round to suit my configuration, it would actually work, but as this is supplied, that won't work anyway. So yeah, that's a bit frustrating. But yeah, I like the fact that it's got a restrictor and it's a decent size anyway. So yeah, that's what comes in the bag. Little gasket. At least it's got some sort of brand on it, which is nice, not just some nameless piece of God knows what material. So yeah, there we go. That's the little bag of stuff you get with it. Well, as you can see, it's got some sort of quality control serial number marking on it. Well, we've got an 8-blade billet compressor wheel, so I'll put the specs of the whole turbo in the description because I can't remember all the size of the wheels and the extended tip and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, also it's got an anti-surge compressor housing on this, 0.60 AR, so that's pretty good. The castings look real nice, good quality and everything, nicely machined. That's actually quite concentric to the bore of it in here as well. It's not like offset to the wonk one way or the other, so that's pretty cool. Generally speaking, it's quite a good looking product. Obviously a lot higher level of quality in this particular Chinese manufactured turbo than quite a few that you see. Does have its own name plaque as well with a serial number, so that's nice, and a part number or something on there as well. Little caps for pretty much all of the openings apart from the back end of this. I have been playing with this already, which is why the actuator is already off. So it comes with different options. You can have a T25 and 5-bolt outlet like this is. That's a fairly standard configuration for the turbine housing. Pretty decent sized wastegate on it. Quite happy with that. And like I say, I think it's a 9-blade turbine wheel. So yeah, all good fun. You can get dual V-band housings. This is the T25.64 AR because I wanted it to spool relatively quickly without having any problems choking the engine. Obviously this turbo is used on quite a lot of 2-litre turbocharged vehicles, so it's a pretty decent size. They do a 0.86 housing as well, which obviously would allow more flow but wouldn't spool till a bit later. Obviously you get a slower sort of turbo response from that size, and you can get stainless steel dual V bands. Again, T25 pattern here, which is pretty good because that's a fairly common industry standard nowadays. And you can get gaskets for it, you can buy manifold flanges for it, all that sort of stuff. So it's all pretty common, easy to look after and kind of future-proof. So yeah, pretty good with that. Generally speaking, looks fine. There are a few disappointments though. As you can see where I've taken off the, this is the actuator. So that's the actuator, it just simply bolts on 2 of these holes. And I've already twisted and clocked the cores for my particular car, so that's why none of it kind of lines up at the moment. I went with a 7.4 psi or half a bar roughly actuator for an internal wastegate. You can get billet ones of these which you can take apart and change the springs, but I figured if I wanted more boost I could use a boost controller, whether manual or electronic on this. So generally speaking, good quality, do like it. The problems I have with it, they forgot to put any sort of drilling for the nipple so you can feed boost pressure to the actuator. So if you look on the side here, you can see there is clearly a casting provision for it. It just hasn't been drilled and tapped. I understand obviously on some turbos you're going to want to be using an external wastegate, so there's no point in that. But if they offer an option of an internal wastegate, then surely you should provide the sort of like the boost source for it. You can get things that you put into the pipe and take it from there, but it's just so frustrating that they had the option there and just didn't use it. I mean, even if they drilled and tapped it and then just put a blanking plug in for the external wastegate versions, and then you could just put an 8th MPT fitting in there for those versions, or put it as an option on the pull down list. I mean, you can choose 5, 6, 7 different housings for this damn thing, but you can't say whether you want the boost reference in there or not. That's frustrating, but they have given us a turbine shaft speed sensor hole, which I'm never going to use because this is going on a car that's going to produce maybe 300 horsepower. So it's not like a full motorsport race application where they're going to have all that data. It's going to be standalone and all this sort of stuff for data logging and troubleshooting later. But yeah, that's frustrating because I would rather have not had that and had the boost provision there. But yeah, anyway, the other thing that really pissed me off was the fact that where they've drilled the holes in some of these positions to hold the clamps that actually hold the compressor cover to this sort of like face that's then circlip to the core itself, where they've drilled, they've actually gone right through. So these are through holes. I think for these 3, these ones are far enough out that they don't actually overlap the volute, so they don't actually line up and go through. Annoyingly, the screws themselves aren't really long enough to come through onto the inside, so it wasn't like it was a strength thing. It was more, from what I can tell, it's probably just easier to manufacture, because if you drill a blind hole, you then have to use sort of like 2 or 3 different taps and a bottoming tap to get the threads to the bottom of it. But whereas if you've got a through hole, you can just run sort of like a second stage tap right the way through and then right out again. So it's quicker to manufacture, but it also leaves the problem of you could get leakage and also swarf and stuff when you're assembling it. So I did speak to them about it, and this is how they're supposed to be. Pulsar themselves told me this is how they all are. It just seems a bit frustrating that, you know, when you tighten them up or loosen them, you could get the thread seal sort of coming off and going into the turbo and you wouldn't really know. And also, it seems like, you know, they've taken it, they've removed the stupid, weird, funky inlet and outlet bolt-on flangey things, and they've made it like more usable that way, but then they forgot to put on a boost reference nipple, and they've drilled right through in these positions. And also on the turbine housing as well, the turbine housing, the bolts, one of the bolts goes through, you can actually see it through the wastegate. So yeah, they were so close to making it excellent and better than the Garrett, and then they went, oh, hang on a minute, let's just save a bit of money and do it this way. So that's a bit frustrating, but generally speaking, I'm quite happy with it. These are the water inlet and outlet fittings. They obviously bolt onto the side of the turbo. to feed water in and out of it. I'm not going to use these because by the time you've got an AN sort of fitting on that as well, and that attaches there, by the time you've got an AN fitting on that, you know, the hose pipe sort of out here, then you've got to do a 90, and then it's all a bit goofy. So I've got some different fittings to go on there, but they are included, which is quite cool. We'll go through that bag in a minute. So yeah, generally speaking, quite happy with it, and it's a lot better quality than the Max Speeding Rods garbage I have been playing with. So big shout out to Pulsar for doing. I'm going to be harsh and give it a 7 out of 10, just for the things I've mentioned, but generally speaking, as far as the quality of it goes, it is dual ceramic ball bearing as well, so obviously it's not journal bearing, but so is the 2860R anyway. Oh yeah, just had a quick look through the accessories pack, and the gasket that comes with it, for some reason it's got 6mm holes in it, and the bolts are M8, so they don't actually fit through the gasket either, so that gasket's going in the bin. Never mind. So there we go. I hope you found it useful. That's the Pulsar PTX or PSR 2860R Gen 2 turbo, quick tabletop review and everything. So yeah, my name's Dan, this is Dan91's Garage. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're interested in seeing me turbo this thing, because the rest of the videos now coming up are going to be about that. So take care of yourselves, and I'll hopefully see you on the next one.